One. Hello, everyone. In this episode of Director Discussions, I am honored to sit down one of my favorite filmmakers, one I've wanted to chat with for so long, the amazing Paul Feig. I mean, where do I even begin? You may know him as the director behind films. I mean, I'll take a deep breath. The Heat, Ghostbusters, Spy, Bridesmaids, I Am David, A Simple Favour, Last Christmas. He's gotten to work on TV shows such as Freaks and Geeks, The Office, Arrested Development, recently Welcome to Flatch. And, speaking about recently, his newest film, it's over on Netflix, The School for Good and Evil, which has just been, immensely popular. I mean, what is it? It's in the top 10 on Netflix, right?
Yeah, we're number one worldwide in 83 countries, and then number two in the rest of the countries. So it's very nice. It's very it's what you always hope will happen when you make a movie, but you never know if it will, and it rarely does. I will say that too.
Not half bad having your film there, no doubt because of this interview, because you've been putting this interview together. Like I said, if I haven't made it clear, I am horribly humble throughout just the beginning of our conversation. It's
Then you got to come out of your shell, Daniel.
Yeah, can you stop interrupting me and let me do my thing? And no, I'm one of those. No, Paul, it's such an honor to show you. I mean, first things first. I was talking to my friend Olivia Fatty over at Geek Ireland, and she mentioned, "Is this true? Did you shoot some of this in Ireland, here in Ireland?"
Got the whole thing in Belfast.
Actually,
yeah. We did a couple of additional scenes after we wrapped in Budapest and Los Angeles, but the vast majority of the movie was shot in Belfast.
dude, what was it like coming over to the Emerald Isle and getting to shoot? Was this your first time in Ireland?
No, I've been in Ireland before, but it was my first time in Northern Ireland, and it was really lovely. We had the best time. I mean, it was so much fun. It was during lockdown, so not everything.
Oh,
But the people everyone's so lovely there, and it's a really cool town.
dude, yeah, amazing. If you ever come back to Ireland, I'll think about letting you stay at my house. I'm very busy. My people will talk to your people. We'll see what works.
Come on, let's work something out, Daniel. I need help.
I'll see how I feel. It depends. I'm always busy doing something. This channel isn't going to run itself. But no, there you go. The School for Good and Evil, though. What's really fascinating about this is a project that's kind of been in development for a while, right? This is something that Netflix. I mean, I don't know. Was it always Netflix who had the rights to it, or what's the story?
No, the book came out in 2013, and it was optioned by Universal Studios actually, and
Okay.
they were developing it for a number of years, and then it finally just sort of didn't happen. And then when Scott Stuber, who was working at running Universal at the time, went to Netflix, he brought it over with him, and then got to make it there. So, but I wasn't even involved until it got to Netflix.
Dude, amazing. And so when you're jumping onto something like this, I feel like it's fair to say this is very much, it's different from the rest of your work. I mean, whether, you kind of have these character-driven comedy films. This is very fantastical and very grandiose, and it's a large blockbuster. Did you have to change your approach when you're coming onto a project like this? Because you've done, I guess Ghostbusters is obviously a blockbuster film, but was this different in a sense because it's just so kind of fantastical and so kind of mystic?
Yeah, I mean, every movie has its own challenges, and this one is just everything in it is new. You know what I mean? Like Ghostbusters took place in a city, so we'd established that world. We built the world from the ground up because nothing existed. So that was really fun. Yeah, so it was just a really good time. But a lot of people go like, "This is so different from you," but it's really. I have a show called Freaks and Geeks that I created 20 plus years ago. It's really just Freaks and Geeks with magic. I say. So a much
That's the
bigger.
tagline.
There you go.
You can keep that. I'm very generous. It's like I was interviewing Mike Flanagan, and like I patented the term Flaniverse. Next day on Netflix, they put up Flaniverse. So all I'm saying is that, it could be a coincidence, or either I assume every single Netflix studio exec is watching this channel. So which one seems more likely?
It's the hottest show on the internet, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, there you go. That's my tagline for this episode. You said it, which means it's basically canon in the universe. But no, so thanks for that anyway. No, the School for Good and Evil, were you at all nervous because this is obviously a successful book? You're no secret to adaptations. I'm sure you've done a few before, but when you're adapting something like as kind of big as that, and I know there's so much in that world, you kind of have to sit down as a storyteller and say, well, just how do I fit that all in 2.5 hours? What's important, what's not? Was that a struggle for you as a storyteller?
It was hard. I mean, that's why it was in development at Universal Studios for years before I got there. I mean, it's a hard book to take down to 2 hours, 2 hours plus. We're to like 2:15 without credits. Yeah, but I worked really closely with Soman, who wrote the books. and was able to kind of say to him, like, what scenes do the fans desperately want? What lines do they want? What are their favorite characters? What are their favorite moments?
Sure.
And so from that was able to go, okay, make sure we want to service the fans of the books, but then we also want to bring in a whole new audience who's never read the books. And I have a personal hatred of when you go to see a movie and then you're like, I don't know what's going on. And they're like, oh, well, you had to read the comic or you need to know the book. It's like, well, no, it's a movie. It's got to stand on its own. So that was the hardest part. But it was great. You're always nervous. You don't want to let the fans down, but you want to make everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, so much of it is world building because it is such a huge world. Like I said, I mean, like, you look to, you mentioned Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is in New York. We define that. Everyone knows what kind of where New York is or has some idea of it. Like Galvadon, these are all new worlds that you're completely building up from scratch. And so visually, as a storyteller, I mean, it's one thing to talk about, creating these characters and creating these worlds. Visually, is it hard for you to define this universe and kind of come up with these visual designs and come up with these landscapes and stuff like that? Was that a struggle for you at all?
Well, actually, that was the fun part. I think that was the thing.
Yeah.
I read it and I loved the story and the characters. The next thing was like, oh, I got to build a world. Yeah, as a filmmaker, that's like catnip. That you just look for those kind of projects. But I'm also, I'm not like some sort of visual genius or anything. So it's really fun to then bring in great artists and great production designers and designer. Get a team in, and my costumers and all that, and really kind of go, here's kind of what I want the world to look like. Here's what I don't want it to look like, and then just start weighing in that way, and then we build up, finding photos, finding reference paintings, any kind of visuals we can to start to get the feel for it. And then you slowly through collage and kind of, working with stuff and the designers start taking their cracks and stuff, the world starts to appear to you. And that's what's really fun.
Oh, dude, totally. And I mean, let me just ask you, because I feel like this will be my last interview before Halloween. Do you have any favorite? Are you a horror fan at all as a filmmaker? Do you have any favorite Halloween films? Because I'm wearing my The Exorcist jumper just especially for this interview. So let me ask you, are you a fan of horror at all?
I am. I never used to be, and only in the last 5 years, I suddenly became a big fan of horror. I think, as a kid, I was really sensitive, and so I always imagined that the horror was going to be so terrifying, I would like die.
Yeah.
Horror movies are like, oh, they're just fun. They're really, I enjoy them. I think I have a special place in my heart for Evil Dead 2. I think is because it's funny, and it's just over the top and nuts. So I love that. But there's also a movie that came out, a few years ago with Toni Collette. Was it Inheritance? Not Inheritance. It's
Hereditary. Was it Hereditary?
That's a great movie, because it takes you through so many twists and turns, and you don't know where you're going, and there's horrifying moments in it. I mean, that one moment in particular where that little girl is just like, I like any moment where I'm just like for 5 minutes going like, oh my God, like I can't believe they just did that. It's like in the most recent Invisible Man, in that scene in the
Oh,
rest with the sister and the knife. Like I was just for 5 minutes going, oh my God, I can't believe that. That's kind of the fun of horror. What I like about horror too is horror and comedy work on the exact same level. It's about a big response from an audience. But people will scream and then they'll laugh, So like in the movie The Heat, we had kind of a horror movie moment of that just with the knife, because the bad guy stabs Sandra Bullock in the leg with a knife, and then he goes away, and so Melissa pulls it out, but then he's coming back, so they have to not let him know that they're free of their ropes, and so she has to put it back in. And when we would test screen that with audiences, the screams and then the laughter at the same time were so much fun that was the moment I was like, I think I want to do a horror movie one of these days.
there you go. But no, that's so fascinating because I recently got to interview. I don't know if you know the director, David Dobkin. He's
Mhm.
fantastic. He's directed a lot of comedy, Wedding Crashers, Eurovision. And what
Oh,
was
yeah.
really fascinating to me about comedy that I think a lot of people don't realize, but so much goes into building comedy. I mean, whether it's the pause between two lines that for some reason that will incite a laugh, or whether it's close-ups or just the beat or the way the joke is told, so much goes into comedy. So do you kind of have to craft comedy as a director?
Oh, very much so. It's the problem with comedy, not the problem. The problem with why we never win awards for comedy, and where we're kind of like looked at as being like, oh, that's not, that's just easy, is because to do comedy correctly, it has to look very easy. It has to look just effortless. But to get it to be effortless looking is the hardest thing in the world because, like you say, it's all about timing. I mean, two frames here, one frame will just completely screw a joke or completely make it better.
Yeah.
And how you shoot it, I mean, like that, the famous scene in Bridesmaids in the bathroom, everybody's, throwing up and all that. like in the past I've seen those scenes done kind of like big wide angle lenses and people's face and they're all red and sweating and it's just like it's so gross and you're just like you feel bad for everybody in the scene, but so this was like let's just be observational with it, get in there with it, but at the same time not I don't know, just like kind of wear out the audience. So it's a real delicate balance you have to hit, and that's all our time goes into just trying to make it look easy.
I mean, dude, school must be, is this your 10th feature you're on now? Your ninth?
My ninth,
Your
yeah.
ninth feature. I mean, a lot of that has obviously been comedy. Do you feel like, without sounding too pretentious, do you feel like you've kind of like mastered comedy in a way? Are you still kind of still learning new things that you'd never even realized before? Maybe even new camera tricks and stuff like that in the world of comedy. Are you still learning?
No, you never master comedy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an ever changing target. Because I mean, if you look, watch comedies from the '80s, watch them from the '90s, and watch them now. The sense of the humor are different. Like some of those ones you go like, oh my god, it's like so over the top and so forced. But at the time, comedy was in that zone, and people thought it was myself included, we all thought it was hilarious. And now comedy is very behavioral, and so it tends to be smaller, and so people react the other way when they see something that feels too jokey these days. They kind of go, ugh. That's why my movies now, I really try to hide the comedy in a genre that is not known for being a comedy. My movie Simple Favor, I consider that one of my best comedies.
Yeah.
But it's the comedy is in there because it's all behavioral, it's in the characters, it's in the extreme situations they're in and how they react to them, but it's funny. It's just the stakes are high and we're not subverting the genre to make it a parody or satire, which is I have no interest in doing.
Dude, that's really fascinating, that point of kind of making a thriller and a comedy. And I mean, kind of blending that, because I love kind of now we're getting that period where filmmakers are kind of blending genres and seeing what works. Like, I mean, for a simple favor, you could say that Ghostbusters, I still feel like is kind of an action film at its heart, as well as being a comedy, much like the classic one, which that is. And I mean, this is, I mean this 100% as a compliment, but I was so scared during Ghostbusters. Me and my sister actually had to take a step outside there in one of the scenes and then come back in. So take that as a compliment, I suppose. So
I take that.
your film was so good, I walked out of it for a minute and then came back. So there you go. But
Well,
no,
back as long as you came back,
there you
Daniel.
go. That's the thing. But dude, let me ask you this. I mean, I know obviously being the film fan that you are, getting to do something like Ghostbusters, which I love, man. I think the fact that you got to come onto this world, which was kind of untouched, and do something new and just have, I mean, you can feel the fun you had with it, which is kind of what I love. And I just hope so much filmmakers get the chance to just kind of have fun. I think you can feel it kind of radiant from that film. That must have been a job for you. Like, did that little child boy, Paul, just kind of freak out getting to jump in and play in that sandbox?
Oh my God, totally. I mean, I had seen that movie when I was in film school, so I was a little older. I was in my early 20s
Yeah.
and saw it opening weekend and just we thought it was the greatest thing we've ever seen because comedy hadn't been kind of, it had that kind of a genre to it. I mean, if you go way back to, Abbott and Costello, Meet Frankenstein, all those things, they were mixing comedy in horror or supernatural. But it hadn't been done in a long time. So we just thought it was great. So when I got the opportunity to come on board, at first it was like, should we do a sequel? Should we not? And I kind of felt like, I don't know, I don't want to touch the other ones. So I thought it'd be almost more respectful to just reboot it and start it on this side so we don't kind of get in with that. I mean, strong opinions about us doing that, but I'm glad that we did that because it was fun to just get new characters, keep them in the same world, and obviously we kept the same archetypes and all that because at the time we thought let's not get too far away from what people loved about the original ones. Again, was that a mistake? I don't know, but and it was just really it was just so much fun to get to build those props, and to have that gear and create new gear. We just had the best time.
It's amazing, and I feel like you can totally see that. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't know if that's a lost art. I'm not maybe as well versed in films as I should be, but I feel like it's great. Like, some of my favorite films are stuff like Kubrick, like Full Metal Jacket. Now that's a film I don't imagine they had a lot of fun making. I don't watch that and say, oh, they must have had a ball shooting that. But something like Ghostbusters, I feel like that's like you can kind of feel the fun you had radiating off, and I feel like that's kind of what makes a good film to me. I mean, like, not to say that films that don't look fun to shoot aren't good, but it's just I feel like the fact that you got to have so much fun like that is what film should be. So I absolutely really enjoyed it. And I mean, getting to jump into that world, was that the most daunting it's ever been for you as a creator, getting to work on a film? Because I mean, it was kind of already so big.
At that point in my career, yeah, it was definitely. Although I was coming off of like three, good hits with Bridesmaids, The Heat, and Spy, so I
Yeah,
was pretty confident too, But and I also didn't going in. I don't because since I saw it as a guy in college, it didn't have that same resonance to me as it did to a whole generation, after me who grew up with it as kids and would
yeah.
play it. So it was only as we got into it that I started to realize, oh man, there's a lot of pressure here, to make everybody happy. So it was daunting, but it didn't kind of stop our fun. It just made us more aware of trying to make sure that we were doing everything correctly, And again, some people liked it, some people didn't like it, but yeah, that's every movie. You can't please
Yeah.
everybody.
Totally. And
Sad.
I mean, what was kind of amazing, I've seen you talk about this in interviews, is that like you're like, no, I have no regrets. I wouldn't do anything differently. And I feel like just that uncompromisability, I don't even know if that's a word. I feel like that's just so admiring. So do you feel that way? Is it like out of all your films, is there anything you do differently, or you like, no, you're completely happy with how?
Well, I mean, the thing is, every movie you do, you're always kind of there's moments you're like, oh, I wish we had done that, or
Yeah, yeah.
no, the phrase is that you never finish a movie, they just take it away from you, and you just run out of time. You just run out of time, and it's just like, okay, but I'm at peace with everything in my movies. There's always a thing. For me, it's always something I go like, oh, I wish we had shot a joke here. I wish we had shot a line.
Really?
Yeah. There's a few in my movies that every time it comes up, I'm like, oh, we could have gotten a big laugh there, and we just for some reason missed it.
So can you ever rewatch any of your old films, or is that just kind of impossible for you?
It's weird. I watch my movies so many times while I'm making them, and doing our test screenings, and then once they're together and we're doing screenings for audiences and and influencers and doing premieres and all that. But I love it. I'm always like, I can't wait to watch it. And I'm always, when I'm sitting in the premiere watching it, like our big premiere, our main premiere, I'm always going like, and I'm never going to watch this again. And it's just something that happens in my brain. It just goes like, and I'm done. And then I don't ever watch them again. Like maybe years down the line, every once in a while, if I'm on an airplane and I got my iPad, it's on there, like, oh, let me watch, watch The Heat again, so that's kind of fun. But it's weird too to watch your movies after a while.
I imagine you're on the plane. You're like, "Hey, guy, I directed this film. It's all me." And he's like, "All right, guy. All right, yeah, just have a nice flight." And you're like, "I swear, I'm not lying to you, man. That was all me." I
Dangerous.
assume
I hate that. Oh no.
that'd be the worst case. I mean, it's like at least if anyone ever if anyone ever hates a film that they're watching on the plane, they can't really walk out of it. So I mean, there you go. I mean that's the best way to look at it. But no, what I also really love about your work is that you've directed a lot of TV. And let me ask you this: is there more freedom attested to TV as opposed to directing films, or is it pretty much equal? Or what's the kind of the
Yeah, I mean the dynamic on TV is different because the process and the hierarchy is different. In a movie, the director's kind of the main person in charge. Obviously, you've got the studio to answer to, and you sometimes have other producers who have ideas and thoughts, but you are the person making the decision. And in television, as a director, it's the showrunner, it's the head writer, executive producer. They're the ones who really run the show. So you come in as a director, and having run a show and all that, you
yeah.
want the director to come in with a lot of ideas and to kind of take the reins. But at the same time, if there's something we don't like or we're not happy with, it's like, oh, actually change this. So you're not in charge. You're trying to be in charge, but at the end of the day, you still kind of, before you move on from any take, is like you go over to them like, are you okay with this? Are you cool? A lot of times they'll be like, oh, get this or get that. And I've had some times where the exec producer will come in as we're setting up a shot and go like, I don't think this is it. It should be more like this, and your job as a TV director is not to go like, oh, you're wrong and argue. Just go like, okay, I gave you my version, but if you want this other version, that's fine, So,
Yeah.
it's a little less control.
Oh, yeah, that's really fascinating. And I love to ask that question because I mean, everyone I feel like has a different answer because TV and film, I mean, a lot of people may associate them together, but I feel like they are two very different mediums. It's like, especially as screenwriters, I've found that like, whether you're writing a film or TV show, it does tend to be very different. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, totally. I mean, the other thing with a TV show is it's set up. Like unless you're doing the pilot, the first episode, it's up and running. The sets are there, the characters have been established.
Yeah.
stories have been told already. So you're just coming into a world that exists. A movie, every single day, you are creating something new. I mean, some days, sometimes you have like 2 weeks on the same set. But even then, you're like, these are the first time these characters are doing something, unless it's a sequel. And it's the first time you're on these sets. And so every day is discovery. Every day doesn't have the security of like, okay, well, this is the set. We've shot this set a million times, or okay, we know these characters work. Okay, this story works. So that's the thing. You're just every day is a new experience.
Yeah, and so this is just a general filmmaking question, but that was a great answer. This is just a general filmmaking question. But I was just wondering, as a filmmaker, what is your goal as your films? Do you want people to just like, I mean, I assume if you're making comedy, your goal is, of course, to make people laugh. But do you want to build a connection between these people and characters? Because I feel like so much of cinema is connection, is the director telling people what kind of about himself and stuff like, without getting too pretentious and standing on my soapbox. And what do you want to express with your films as a filmmaker?
Well, I mean, I'm very drawn to stories about underdogs. If you look at pretty much every one of my movies about
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't know their place in the world, who doesn't have confidence, and who then gets pulled into a situation in which they sort of start to discover who they are, confront their demons, and confront their insecurities, and come out the other side a better person. So, I mean, that's kind of my main theme. But when you talk about connection with characters, it's interesting because that's all we have as filmmakers, and that's the movie you care about and a movie you don't care about. Because if I make a movie and you kind of watch it and you're like, okay, these people are whatever, I've lost you. You're not going to go along for the ride. The only thing that's going to pull you through that movie is you going like, oh, I care about this lead character. I care about these people. Oh no, what's going to happen to them? Oh gosh, it's what they call in the business stakes. It's all about like, what are the stakes? Which is very overused in the executive world, but it is true. Like there has to be a lot at stake for this character, and you have to care about them so much that you are just on the edge, edge of your seat. You're just going along, for the ride, because the minute you kind of go like, I don't care about these people, then we failed as filmmakers, and you might as well just turn off the movie, and you usually will.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I just have to compliment you on that, without sounding like a jackass. I mean, I've seen two of your films in cinemas and I absolutely loved them, and both for different reasons, And my dad, Simon, is deaf, and growing up, he was the biggest Ghostbusters fan in the world. He grew up in kind of rural Ireland, and like subtitles weren't as popular back then, but because he could watch something like Ghostbusters, which was so visually strong, the fact that years later, me and him got to go to a cinema and see, Ghostbusters and watch your version together. I mean, it's amazing. And like, we're such big fans. We collect Ghostbusters autographs, and we got to meet Bill Murray when he came golfing a few months back. So you're the only name we don't have. So if you ever come to Ireland, let me know, and we'll have to get that Paul Feig autograph. And yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. And like, last Christmas, I also got to see that in cinemas because my mom is a huge George Michael fan. And I was like, I'm not going to say no to a free cinema trip. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? But no, so I just really have to commend you on your films. And thank you. I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. But my last couple of questions is, what is your dream as a filmmaker? If you could do any film, anything, is there any specific film you'd like to work on? Or are you kind of content with what you've gotten to?
Well, I'm really happy with what I've been doing, but I mean, there's genres I want to do. I'm dying to do a musical. I want to find an original musical or develop one for us. A big sci-fi movie, like a big sci-fi epic, but kind of like a funny, one with comedy in it. I've actually written one, but everybody says it's too expensive to make. But maybe someday. A monster movie. I mean, I had a project at Universal. I have a project at Universal that's in the old monster world, like the old Frankenstein, those type of monster movies.
Creatures of the Black Lagoon type world?
Yeah, where monsters are in our world, and I love it. But again, it's thought of as being too expensive to make. So, you keep trying. But no, I just want to work my way through all the genres. That's my goal. I mean, my
Yeah.
my one of my heroes was Howard Hawks, the old director, and he, successfully made screwball comedies. He made westerns. He made gangster movies, and each of them were great. And I think it comes from when I was directing TV. I would go from a medical show to to a documentary comedy and all that kind of. So you're jumping genres, and it was just fun. Like to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's just it's not challenging, and it's not exciting, and also I want new opportunities to make people laugh, and so that's by finding different genres where you go like, oh, there's these tropes in this genre. Now I can have fun with them, twisting them a bit, not throwing them out or making fun of them, because then you're doing parody, which I don't want to do, like I said earlier. But it's a whole new toolbox of things to make people laugh by subverting their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, totally, man. And I think a Paul Feig Western is what we need, no? I mean, wouldn't that be great? There, we need a
I would
Western.
love to.
Let me ask you this, would you ever tackle the superhero world? Is that something you're all at all interested in as a filmmaker?
Well, I mean, it depends. I have my own issues with superhero movies because it goes back to stakes, which is I don't know when a superhero can get hurt. That's my biggest issue. But I love like Iron Man. Like, that first Iron Man, I think, is one of the most brilliant movies because he's a human guy, in this thing. So he's using his brain to do it. But like if something goes wrong, he's going to die versus if I'm watching, all these superheroes punching each other through buildings and, buildings are collapsing on top of them, they kind of come out and shake their head. I'm like, well, when am I worried? So I think that for me is it's probably one of the genres, not that I wouldn't do it, but
You'd have to find your way in almost. You'd have
I
to,
really,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
But that's
fascinating.
what, because Batman's just a guy.
There you go. Let me ask you this. My last and final question. What advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker?
Just do it. You just do it. I'm telling you. Right now, with this, your phone, you can shoot something that looks fantastic because you got HD in there and all this. The first movie I made was back in 1997, and I spent all this money to shoot it on 16 millimeter film. And it looked not great, and it cost all that money to do it. And it was just a simple movie about four people in a field waiting for a UFO. But today I could shoot that movie for nothing. I literally, with my camera, I could shoot it, bring it home, bring back the footage, put it on my computer, edit it in whatever editing system comes with your computer, and put it out on the internet and people could see it. So, it's all about finding your voice. That's the thing you have to do. And you have to fail, you have to try it and it doesn't work. And you go, okay, I see what I did wrong. Now let's try it this way. Sometimes you'll be great right out of the gate, but, rarely, but you never know. But if you don't do it, if you're just waiting around for somebody to give you $1 million to make a movie, then you're just going to be sitting there forever,
Paul, absolutely. That was put perfectly. Let me ask you, are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that? Anything people can check you out on?
Instagram and Twitter. You can get me a Paul Feig, just Paulfeig, Instagram and Twitter. I am on Facebook, but I never go on it. So I won't write you back if you write me on Twitter, on Facebook.
Totally. Any new project you can promote? School for Good and Evil? I imagine that's the main one.
Yeah, well, yeah, School for Good and Evil. If I may go outside of the movie world, I have a book coming out, a cocktail book. Yes, I made a cocktail book of 125 recipes, a lot that I invented, and also lots of funny stories from my past and all that. So that's coming out, and I have my own gin too, called Ardingstall's Brilliant London Dry Gin. So if you're a gin fanatic, not you, Daniel, you're too young.
You'll buy me some when you come over. That's the goal, though. I mean, supplying alcohol to a minor is a strange thing to get arrested for as a filmmaker. That doesn't seem to be the most popular one. But listen,
when you're in your 20s, I'll buy you a martini, my friend.
I'm gonna hold you to that. When I'm a famous, film director living in LA, I'll just crash your house. You'll make me a martini. We'll get all that sort. My people will talk to your people, like I said. And if you get to do a sequel for the School for Good and Evil, if you make it back to Ireland, let me know, and I'll see, depending on availability, if I'll have the time to talk with you. I can probably give you 10 minutes. I don't know. I'm very busy, but we'll see if we can.
Things, yeah.
We'll see if we can get something off the ground. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to chat me. I'll talk to you a little bit off air. Everyone, if you want to follow me over on Twitter, just Daniel Fee33 or at Sample Gizmo1. And as always, if you have the means, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. But Paul, thank you so much for chatting with me. Everyone, go check out the School for Good and Evil. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video.